Hello and welcome to another Nimble video tutorial. I've got a lot to show today and a lot to talk about, so I'm going to try to cover as much as I can as fast as I can. This will be the season finale for season 3. I'm going to take a couple months off to work on a few ideas of mine, and then maybe I'll start back out before end of summer. So when I started this journey with Nimble, I've been talking for the past few years about the lack of interfaces and how the JavaScript hype of different frameworks and the things that I've been seeing being developed in JavaScript lack solid interfaces, which is the reason why we get some of the what I call failed frameworks, or frameworks that don't live up to the hype. They've released the 2018 State of JavaScript survey, in which they ask JavaScript developers what they think. I think you should check it out. It's called stateofjs.com. You can get to see the result of all the questions that are asked to JavaScript developers. One of the things that I found most surprising was Angular did not fare well. When JavaScript developers were asked if they would use Angular again, most of them, or a lot of them, would say no, they would not use the framework. Part of that is the reason why I never really liked the framework to begin with. I kind of tried to stay away from it as much as possible, and I developed my own based on the flaws in some of the things that I've seen being developed in frameworks. That's what made me start building Nimble. Another good article you might want to check out is The Brutal Lifestyle of JavaScript. If you haven't seen it already, you'll see the trends with respect to the current front-end frameworks, and you'll be able to see, the decline in the hype when it comes to Angular and AngularJS. When I talk about interfaces, I saw a really nice article that described it, or described building an object-oriented JavaScript framework as gears in a clock. I lost the article and I haven't been able to find it again online. But I found this gear generator, because the most important thing to realize when it comes to an interface between two objects, it's not just about the point at which the gears touch each other. The interface is a subtle creation, and it requires some finesse, because the radius also dictates the interface. The distance between the center and where the teeth actually touch is a part of the interface, and that's a subtle thing to consider when developing one. Last but not least, I found a really cool article about how to navigate the maze of JavaScript. Another one of the flaws that I see in these custom JavaScript frameworks is the event naming and function naming are not standard. So in order to figure out how someone hooked together a JavaScript project, you would have to basically be a mind reader to know how their naming conventions for the events. If they don't use a standard on-click event and they don't name it as such, you're going to have to manually trace out all of their event naming and try to figure out how any custom applications or large-scale applications are connected. Last but not least, and my favorite, I really think everyone should watch. If you don't take any credibility about what I say with respect to interfaces, you need to watch the builder of Node, Ryan Dahl. He created the person who originally created Node.js, and he gives a 10 things that he regrets about Node.js. It's on YouTube. Around 19 minutes into the video, he describes exactly what I was referring to about dependencies and module connecting back and forth, and he displays what he would have liked to see in his design. So within Node.js, he wholeheartedly admits that he did not create a dispatcher between the V8 and what he's now proposing for his new platform called Dino. So that dispatcher is exactly what I'm referring to, a data interface for communicating between two different platforms. So that goes to show that old Ty could see the things that were going on long before anyone, I guess, would admit to it publicly. That being said, let's move into the eye candy of this demo. So I've been working with the SVG document render extension for the Nimble IDE. And if you remember, a few weeks back, started out with just the ability to analyze and visualize a JSON object, navigate down and show the connection between the two. I then expanded it to use and build an org chart, which was on my last video. And after building those two factories, what I did was I started to think about the interface for it. And I think right around the time where you build, I guess you use your design 1 or 2 times is the best time to really look at an interface design, because you've used it, you've put it into work, and now you're able to make some judgment calls on the best way to structure an interface for a reusable component. The beauty of this design is within the dialog itself. Within this dialog, I've established a define interface function. This allows any factory to query and ask the dialog, how can I talk to you? What are the interfaces that you provide? The dialog itself will respond back with a simple JSON object that describes the data and a list of function calls. Of course, the handler to the dialog and init, destroy, and then all the interfaces that I've built since then. The zoom functionality interface controls the zoom buttons or are hooked to the zoom buttons, and the snapshot is the ability to save whatever's on the screen. The new one I'm going to show you today is the UI mockup interface. The beauty of this is within this define interface function, I just return back a object of the definition all nulls. The factory will then populate the hooks into the factory methods that the interface will now call when needed. The best part about this is that makes this design both forward and backward compatible infinitely. I should never have to have a breaking change. I can add version control on the interface. I can make multiple versions of this, all powered by this query and attach functionality, and it should never trigger a breaking change. It's 2019. We've seen Angular go from 1 to version 7 and have multiple breaking changes along the way. This is the reason why Nimble will never have a breaking change. I wanted my platform to stand up for years, to execute for years, and I didn't have time for rewrites. It has to be correct at the moment I designed it. It needed to be solid. So that means I get to show you today my new UI mockup interface or factory. It's called the UI Design Factory. So what I'm going to do is, copy this code and execute it in the command line. It's about 1,500 lines of code. The original factory that I started with was only about 700. So in the course of this month, I've doubled the size of the factory for this. For each iteration, it went from 700 lines of code to I think 900 lines of code, and this one is 14 or 1,500 lines. And now we're going to initialize it, the UI diagram. We're going to bind it to the new document, and we should see it clear. And now we're going to start it up. When we start it up, you see nothing. The reason why is because the new factory is a mock-up tool so that you can now build mock-ups for the work that you're going to actually create with the platform. The beauty of it, all done in an SVG platform. You can add notes. all within the same interface using a different factory with different rules and different code and logic to support it. I've built a series of samples so you can see exactly how detailed. This is the login panel. Imagine using Nimble in any enterprise environment and having your PM or people who are in charge of getting requirements able to start the mockup editor, build a layout that they're interested in designing, and then attach notes about what they want each piece to do, what they expect to happen on the dialogue. Just like the documentation that happens with the JSON parse and JSON REST endpoint, you can save these documents and have a running history of all the changes that have taken place on a design specification. And built a simple user list panel. You can right click, show all the notes. And the beauty of Nimble, again, my menu design editor, the same menu that would show across the top, this same menu design format is the same exact format that makes your pop-up menus. So by using Nimble, I'm able to put custom pop-up menus for the main dialog to hide and show notes, clear them all. I have a unique pop-up menu for the when you click on a control to add, on a dialog, so you can add control, add a note to the control, edit the caption, so on. And then of course one for the control where you can add the notes, edit the caption, and then one for the note where you can just edit the caption or remove it. A beautiful way to now save documentation about the design as it's happening, create mock-ups, information about the mock-ups, and really keep your project moving forward in a smooth fashion. That's what Nimble is all about. Agile development personified. I hope you like this demo. I hope you like what I've been creating here. As I've said, and as I've been trying to preach since I started this, interfaces are everything. If you check out that video, you'll see that even Node.js, the author of Node.js, admits that he didn't put an adequate interface on the design. And that's the difference. That's the difference between Nimble and other frameworks. Having an adequate interface, it means everything to me. It's easy to make programs that work, but having a good interface is having a program that's a work of art. The Nimble Solution, 2019. Thank you for watching.